Hi, welcome to the A&F show. I'm Austin Fuhrman with my intriguing guest, Andrew Siciliano. Thank you for coming today.
Pleasure to have me. Thanks for being here. You know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad I'm here. How about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You attended South Lakes High School in Virginia. Do you have any role models when you were growing up as a young kid?
You know, I kind of wanted Austin to do baseball, radio, play-by-play. So I never thought I would ever be on TV. It was either be a baseball radio guy or be a writer. And so growing up, I listened to baseball games almost every night. Before you could stream them, it was AM radio. So I had my Walkman, and I would do my homework listening to baseball games. So I would listen to John Miller, who's now the voice of the San Francisco Giants for a long, long time. He was doing the Orioles back then, which is the closest team for me. I grew up outside D.C., in Northern Virginia. So I listened to the Orioles games, but I also had it figured out where I could listen to the Yankees games at night, or I could listen to the Indians games. My dad's from Cleveland. I'm an Indians fan. So, Herb Score, the late Herb Score, the former pitcher, was the voice of the Indians. I would listen to him a lot as well, listen to John Miller. I couldn't get in Vin Scully, but back then he was doing maybe the All-Star Game or the World Series for NBC on television, so I would get a chance to listen to him, and I was always a fan. But that's kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't think it was realistic. When it came to the writers, I always appreciated Thomas Boswell, who then was writing for the Washington Post, or Tony Kornheiser, who long before PTI and long before all his success and all his books, he was a regular sports columnist for the Washington Post. So I was a big fan of his certainly as well, and I got really lucky after my freshman year in college when I came home to DC. I was an 18-year-old intern on back then what was Tony's local radio show. And so that was a big thrill for me. So that's kind of the people I looked up to. I was always the great Keith Jackson doing college football as well, and that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, Tony Kornheiser, Keith Jackson. When do you know that you want to study journalism at Syracuse?
You know, I don't know. I wrote for the student paper, and I guess it was something I wanted to do, but nothing else really excited me that much. I mean, not that you have to figure out what it is you want to do in your life when you're 15, 16, 17 years old. You maybe have some idea. But I thought of Syracuse. I thought of maybe Northwestern. My father had gone there for law school. As I mentioned, a lot of family in Ohio. I was thinking of maybe Ohio University. And I just decided Syracuse. And then once I got there, went to the student radio station. And I don't know. I'm sitting here with you.
You're sitting here with it. How do you think that has changed your life? What have you taken from Syracuse?
It was the best choice in life I made to go there. You have a great foundation of friends, like you would anywhere. You're going to make good friends and hopefully keep those people in your life. But Syracuse gave me a foundation, not just what I learned in school, but I think the biggest thing there is that there were so many people that had similar goals that you learned early to work hard, to push, to really get after it, because it was so ultra competitive, even as a freshman, to get on that radio station. And then you saw the people on the wall that had been there before you, and that inspired you, that pushed you as well. And a lot of those people would come back and talk a class or lend a helping hand if you wanted some advice or critique on your tape or anything you were doing, or if you wanted to call that person up for a feature and say, hey, the last time Syracuse played at Georgetown, you did the game, and all heck broke loose, and Patrick Ewing did this, and Ronnie Cycli did that. Can you tell me about that? And then you had an interview and a feature. And that environment, I think, helped me get where I am. Doesn't get you a job, might get you an interview, but it doesn't get you that job. You got to go in and get that job. But that ultra-competitive environment, I think, sets you up for the real world, the real life workplace.
Yeah. In Chicago, at a local radio station, you were a dual anchor and reporter. How would you compare those two jobs?
It was kind of nuts because I was 21 and I got hired to be a radio reporter in a pretty big market. And so, I mean, moving to Chicago as a 21-year-old can be intimidating to begin with. But then, my first day on the job was the first day after the All-Star break at Wrigley Field, I was the biggest baseball geek growing up, the biggest baseball geek you ever knew. And on the first day of the job, walk onto the field. The Cubs were playing the Cardinals, and then All-Star, now Hall of Famer Ozzie Smith was taking batting practice, and I was standing there behind the cage watching Ozzie Smith take batting practice at Wrigley. I'd never been to the park ever. It was like a bucket list thing just to go to Wrigley. And now I got a credential on, and I'll be honest with you, I was 21 and starstruck, and it was kind of intimidating at first. And, then basketball season started, and, Jordan was going for Title V.
Jeez.
So I got to cover that team.
Did you ever get to talk with any of the players?
Sure. I'll be honest, though. It took a while to, I was there every game, every day, and same for the Bears, but it takes a while to really fit in because you are working alongside reporters that have been there for 30 years in that market, people that are old enough to be your parents, your grandparents, I'm not exaggerating. And so these people have relationships, and it takes a while for you to build those relationships and really feel comfortable in your own skin. Maybe if I'd started in a market much smaller, maybe you walk into a little more confidence, and you'd still be nervous your first job in the real world. But walking into a market that big, I would never complain. I had the time of my life. It was amazing. So many stories, so many great experiences. But it takes a while to get your feet wet because you are such a very, very, very small fish in a massive, massive ocean.
Yeah. At that local radio station in Chicago, you earned a couple awards. Are there any of those that you are most proud of?
You know what? They were cool local awards for some features we did for the Bears. After the year after I got there, we got the Bears radio on our station. So I would do a pregame feature and a postgame feature, or actually pregame and a halftime, whatever it was. And I put a lot of effort into those. So yeah, I am proud of them because I would on Friday and sometimes even Saturday night be at the radio station till 2 and 3 o'clock. Before digital editing, I sound like I'm 85 years old here, but before digital editing and before you could, now you can edit something on your iPhone, right? Then we had a computer, but only one person knew how to use it, computer for editing. So back then it was the old razor blade and tape. And I would sit on a reel-to-reel machine in a radio station at NBC Tower in Chicago, and sometimes 2, 3 in the morning on a Friday night with a razor blade and a grease pencil, cutting everything up to try to make that feature work. So yes, I am proud of them because there was a lot of effort.
Yeah, hard work pays off. You were also play-by-play announcer for Las Vegas Gladiators and Los Angeles Avengers. How do you compare working for the AFL compared to the NFL?
Well, it was a great stepping stone for me, certainly. And what I wanted to do, and still love doing, is play-by-play for football or baseball, but really specifically football. So I had done it in college, and then I hadn't done it for, at that point, a good period of like 5-6 years.
Really?
And because I was only doing radio. I was a radio reporter. I was a radio host. That was, for whatever reason, that was the way life had taken me, and I enjoyed doing it. And I never thought wasn't trying to do TV. I really wasn't trying to write much at all. I was just doing radio. But then I read in the paper that the Arena Football League team from New Jersey, from outside New York, from the Meadowlands, where they played, had packed up and moved to Vegas, and the season started in 50 days. So I made a couple of calls, found out who the person I needed to talk to was in Vegas. I called that person up and I said, here's who I am, here's what I do, I haven't done games in a while, I would love to do your games. And they said, great, we have other things to worry about like selling tickets and moving, we're packing the vans, we'll get back to you. They called me up 5 days before the season and said, can you come out here tomorrow? I said, sure. So I went out there tomorrow. They hired me, and then I flew back here. I remember I got off the plane, and I called up a friend who worked for the Avengers at the time, and I said, I'm coming into your office right now. Get out VHS tapes and teach me arena football.
Yeah.
And I did those games for like 6 years, and you ask how it compares. It's a vastly, it's apples and oranges, but it's still football. You know? It's a smaller field. The rules are slightly different. There's still a quarterback throwing passes, though. Guys trying to catch him and guys trying to tackle him.
End zone's a little bigger.
End zone, yeah, exactly. And you're in an arena. You're at Staples Center. You're not at the Coliseum.
Right.
The goalposts are much more narrow. There are plenty of different rules, but it's football.
Tackling football.
Exactly. We got a bunch of those games on FSN. So I did radio, did TV. Got my play-by-play skills back, which had clearly gotten rusty and eroded and maybe disappeared altogether. And that was a great stepping stone for, when starting to work in the NFL. I had all those play-by-play reps where I could go do the games with the Rams, or I could go to the Senior Bowl, or go do the East West Shrine Game, or other things, because I was able to get back on the bike, so to speak.
Speaking of play-by-play, you, Torrey Holt, and Marshall Falk led the broadcasting team for the St. Louis Rams 4 preseason games. Tell me about that.
It's great, especially to work with those two.
Yeah.
I mean, Marshall's a Hall of Famer. Torrey has over 900 career catches. Hopefully he gets that call one of these days as well. From Canton, our first year, also worked with Orlando Pace, who just got the call a couple of weeks ago as well to get to the Hall of Fame. It is great to work with those guys because, A, they're good people. B, you learn so much. I mean, Marshall, nobody sees the game like Marshall. Torrey has so much experience, especially coaching as well. He's worked at the youth level. He's worked on the field actually with this Rams group as well in training camp. And Orlando, I mean, first ballot or second ballot Hall of Famer. You could learn a lot, and I just love being at the stadium and love doing games. For me, once the season begins, the regular season, I'm in the studio for 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So I don't get out much. Preseason, postseason, I actually get to be out and be in the field. And if I'm out and I'm in a building, I love to have that headset on doing games because there are not many thrills like that.
Yeah.
Even for the preseason.
Yeah. The Rams moving to LA, how does that affect your current gig?
It doesn't mean I have to fly as much. I mean, first and foremost, I'm excited they're back. I mean, we lost an entire generation of football fan here, and to have a team that had so much history. A lot of people forget the Rams were here for nearly 50 years before they left, and they're bringing all that history back. And to have that team at the Coliseum for 3 years, and then in the new building in Inglewood in 2019, and to kind of reintroduce football, I think professional football to LA, and do so with a great organization, and with an organization that has so many ties already to the community, it's great.
What are your day-to-day job responsibilities at NFL Network?
So it differs depending on the time of year. During the season, I'm hosting a show called Around the NFL, which is on at 6 Eastern time. It's kind of, if you compare it to anything, if you would ever see Wolf Blitzer on CNN in the Situation Room, where he's got the wall of monitors, he's got a reporter here, an analyst here, someone else there, breaking news over there. That's kind of what that show is. So I'll have the reporters out in the field in a big video, actually 2 big video walls, and we'll do the news. We'll certainly do highlights and reaction, but it's more kind of now, what's happening now, as opposed to 4 guys sitting around a desk, which is fun as well, and having just a roundtable conversation. So I do that during the season, and then the off season or the postseason, it's a lot on the road. I go to the East West Shrine Game or the Senior Bowl, be on the road for 2 weeks doing all the college evaluation and getting ready on the path to the draft, as we call it. Just got back from the Combine yesterday, so in Indianapolis for all that, getting ready. And then tomorrow, we start 2 full months of, again, 6 o'clock Eastern at night, the path to the draft. So an hour-long draft show, leading all the way up to April 28th and the first day of the draft, and then get some time off in the summer, and then once training camp begins, it's right back on the road again. So that's there, and then at DirecTV, it's the Red Zone channel every Sunday. So it's 6 days a week during the regular season, and
you've been doing that since 2005.
We started at DirecTV. We launched that in 2005. We just wrapped up our 11th season.
Wow.
And it is by far I know everyone says they have the greatest job on earth, but there's nothing else I'd rather be doing on a Sunday morning than that.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 2, 3, 4 years?
I have no idea, and I know you're not going to believe me. You're going to say I haven't thought about it. I honestly haven't. I'm kind of a live in the moment kind of person. I love my 2 day jobs, so to speak. Love the not so day job, 4 days a week or 4 days a year rather, with the Rams as well. I love the fact that I get to talk about football every day.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that when I'm not talking about football, I still get to talk about football. It's nothing I ever envisioned doing.
Right.
Ever. I don't know where my media career was going to go. I don't know if a media career ever would have gone anywhere for that matter. I envisioned kind of just being a writer, whether it's a newspaper writer or writing books about who knows what. But I'm not one of these people that went, all right, I need to be Bob Costas when I grow up, or I need to be Marv Albert when I grow up, although those are really good goals. And love both of those guys and respect their work like you couldn't believe. I just kind of let the path go, and I'm kind of happy where it ended up.
Just let the path go. What's the most important lesson you've learned in life?
In life or in work?
In life.
Oh, wow.
Life.
In life. I would say trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your intuition. Don't always second guess things. If something feels right, go for it, because you're gonna regret it if you don't.
Yeah.
There are a lot of doors that you look back on and say, I wish I would have knocked on that door. And there are a lot of them they say, I'm thrilled that I did. Like, I wouldn't have gotten, people say it's only the Arena Football League, but it set me on a pretty good path. I wouldn't have gotten that job unless I knocked on the door. My first television work at FSN, I was doing Fox Sports Radio. And I knocked on a door at FSN and said, help me out here. What do I do? I didn't say give me a job. I said, help me out. Give me advice as to how I go about starting to do TV. And they opened a door for me, and I was able to take advantage of it. But if I hadn't knocked on those doors, I would be sitting here regretting that I didn't and wondering what would have happened.
Yeah.
There are still doors that I regret not knocking on, but I'm happy the ones that I did.
Yeah.
Trust
yourself. Says
there you go.
Andrew Siciliano. Trust yourself. And on that note, we will wrap up. Meet up with Austin. I'm Austin Fuhrman. Thank you again,
Austin,
Andrew.
thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Got it.
And we'll see you
Good
next
luck.
time. Thank you.